Hello friends, this is the second in this series of little videos that I'm making about the way that traditional jazz bands communicate during their performances, and it's very much inspired by the fact that people are puzzled by some of those signals that Tuba Skinny use. And before I can go any further, I'm doing my best to keep this very simple for people who say they know nothing at all about music, but it is very important that you do at least understand one concept, which is the concept of the bar of music, the measure in which music is laid out, because I have to refer to that quite a lot. So in case you missed my first video, here's what I mean by bars, or as the Americans call them, measures. So here's what I mean by bars. In the example I'm going to give you, every bar is 4 beats, and I'll count them as I go along. So imagine we're playing, here we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So that would be 4 bars plus the beginning of the 5th. That is what I mean by a bar. Well, having, I hope, got the idea of what bars are, as I explained in my first video, nearly all tunes that the traditional jazz bands play are in multiples of 4 bars, and particularly common is a format which uses 32 bars, and this itself breaks down into 4 sets of 8 bars usually. So think of most tunes as 32 bars. The most common ones are like that, probably more than 50% of all the tunes that jazz bands play. So if you imagine, let's say a band leader or just an agent gets a booking for a jazz band, and instead of having a regular band, he telephones around amongst musicians he knows and tells them all to turn up on the day ready to play some traditional jazz. Even if they've not played together before, provided they are reasonably experienced, they can still put on a very good program, and it won't need much signalling, because if they play largely 32 bar tunes, which are the most common ones in jazz, things like All of Me, Margie and so on, everybody knows them, and everybody knows that the usual format is that first the whole band plays the tune, and then they take it in turns to do a solo on the 32 bars, and then they all come again together at the ending. So there's not much need for signalling, and you can finish up with quite an impressive performance. But with more complicated tunes, there is some need for signalling. And a very good example, of course, is Tuba Skinny. Well, lots of their tunes, but I'm going to give you an example of Cushion Foot Stomp, which is one that they've been playing quite a lot recently. Now, this particular tune breaks down into its multiples of 4 bars, but it has a section A, which is 12 bars, and then it has a section B, which is 24 bars. Then it has what we call a little bridge, which is a kind of just a short link passage, and then it settles into a final theme, which is 16 bars. And that final theme is really the most important one of the tune, because it's the one that the band uses for its improvisations and sticks on for quite a long time. So they play through the first one, the second one, the little bridge, and then they get on to the main theme, and perhaps they play through it 5 times, 6 times, with various players in turn taking a solo. And then when they're coming towards the end, Shay likes to go back to the first theme again and play through the first and second before going back to the last one to finish the tune off. So when the last person has played the final theme, she puts her hand on her head, meaning go back to the top of the music, and that's what they do. So that hand on the head signal is used in that particular way. And incidentally, when it's a matter of deciding who is to play the next chorus, I'm picking up my cornet here, who is to play the next chorus, Shay normally just leans to the side, kind of pointing her cornet to Barnabas or Craig or over to Greg or whatever, just to say, you know, you take the next chorus. And that's all it needs with a good band like Tuba Skinny. There's no need to shout out instructions or to point with a finger. Just a gentle lean or even a little bit of eye contact is all that they seem to need to play the tune well. Well, I've been talking a lot about how everything is divided into groups of 4 bars basically, and with many of those 32 bar tunes, if you imagine them as 4 eighths running like that, it often happens that the middle, well, they call it the middle 8, but actually it's the third of the 8 bars. That particular one is often a contrasting melody and using different chords from the other 3. Better that way round. So imagine my music is going 8 bars, very similar. Then we have a middle 8, which is also called the bridge. And then finally we have the final 8, which is very similar to the first 2 eighths. This is a very common pattern in 32 bar tunes. Now let's assume that Tuba Skinny or any other band are playing one of these 32 bar tunes, and we've played through it about 5 times, and now we want to finish it off, and Shay decides that instead of going right back to the beginning and playing all 32 bars, we will just go back to the bridge. In other words, out of the 32 bars, we'll go back to bar 17 and we shall finish it off from there. Now, to indicate we're going back to the bridge, you will often see Shay make a little symbol like that, or with fingers like this, and just show it to the rest of the band. Some other band leaders do the bridge like that. They actually make that kind of symbol. But that's what it means. Go back to the third section of 8 bars instead of going right back to the beginning. Well, there are a few more points for you to notice, I hope, in other videos. I'm going to pause here, and I'll continue with this series of videos at a later date, but I hope you've enjoyed that and found it useful. So from me for the moment, it's bye-bye.